Ladies and gentlemen, just have a bit of quiet, please. I'd like to welcome you all here tonight to see the presentation presented by our preferred golf course architects, KCD. If I can give you a little bit of introduction and a history to how this all became about. December 24, we, as a club, compiled a brief for the upgrading of the Struie Course and a golf facilities master plan. We wanted proposals that would make use of the new land that we'd purchased at Dochfin and also all the land that the club already has. I hope you're aware we own everything from the Struie to the town, almost 300 acres, as well as the Struie Course. The brief asked for blue sky thinking and what Royal Dornoch might look like in 50 years' time, and the facilities that we could provide for every age, ability and desire of a golfer and anyone else who may have an interest in golf. This is not just for us, this is for our future generations. The brief listed the following as key components: a challenging layout that will bring Struie up to a significantly higher standard than the current course while maintaining playability. In the new land, exploit its more varied terrain whilst maintaining the design themes of the existing holes to ensure the flow of the course is consistent, and also consideration of the potential effects that climate change may have on the layout. The member survey we carried out in 2023 also indicates strong support for the extension of practice facilities. Such an extension is consistent with the club's aim of developing golf, and we suggested that these might comprise a short game area with multiple greens and varied bunker styles, opportunities to practice your chipping, pitching and putting, driving range with multiple greens, simulators, which would be an attractive alternative practice facility, especially in inclement weather or during the winter. A putting green, maybe something like the Himalayas and St Andrews, that would be a challenge both to golfers and non-golfers. We were delighted with what the different architects proposed, and a difficult decision was made easy by these guys here. Kings, Collins, Dormer were the team that we chose. Can you please bear in mind that this is just the beginning of a process. What you'll see tonight are concepts and ideas. They will need refined during the design process, and what we're showing you is what we believe is the what we asked for, and these guys took the brief to its limits. There's going to be many questions in your mind, and to help the evening run smoothly, we've prepared a few frequently asked questions, or questions that are going through. I'll try and answer them as best I can before we start the presentation. Obviously, if you have other questions later on, if you can leave them till the end, and the boys will be able to answer them. First one, when will we start? There's an awful lot to do before we can put a spade in the ground. And even with the smoothest run-in, it'll be at least a year and probably a bit more away. Probably the most important one, how much will it cost? As yet, we've no definitive costs, and all depend on what we choose to do first and when we wish to start. As you know, the club is always very prudent, and we will only press the go button when we believe the finances are secure. What do we do first? As you will see in the presentation, there are various options. Something we hope that you guys will all help us with when the time comes to make decisions. How long will it take? We have no time scale. Our thinking was for however long it was going to take to get what is right for Dornoch. Finances will dictate most of the speed at which we progress, but we know that KCD are with us all during that time. How will it impact on current facilities? All the architects were told that we needed to have 18 holes open at all times, so there would be no loss of amenity for any of our members. Do we have planning permission? Not yet. This will be the first thing that we will have to do, although we did submit a pre-planning application for the Dochfin land, which went well, and we feel very confident to proceed with this. Who will carry out the construction work? These guys are very much a hands-on team. We expect to see them an awful lot in the area over the coming years. Saying that, they do like to use local companies where and when are needed, which was a big plus for us. Who decided that they were the best option? There was a panel of 9 of us picked. We reviewed all the proposals and made a unanimous recommendation to the Council of Management that these were the guys for us, and the Council of Management have agreed with our choice. Why did we choose them? Well, I'll let you make your own decisions for that later on tonight. But the attention they paid to the brief, we think this will give us something that will take Dornoch to the highest levels of golf possible and be something that we should all be very, very proud of. Who else did we ask for proposals? There were another 8 companies, one from Australia, one from Canada, 2 from Scotland, and the rest were based in England. But these guys are our preferred choice. Hopefully this will answer some of your questions. And like I said, if you have any others, please keep them to the end and you can ask them then. Can I now introduce the KCD team, please? If you could stand, Tad King. And then Trevor Dormer. Mark Allen. And the man who's going to take you through our presentation tonight, Rob Collins. So, without further ado, Rob, I hand the floor over to yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Well, what a incredible honor this is for the whole KCD team. I can speak for all of us and say that this truly ranks right up there with weddings and birth of children to be in this room, and I'm serious about that. We are incredibly honored to be here, and I think today will be a day that we never forget, and we're so excited to be a part of helping the club envision the best possible path forward in the future. So thanks so much to Gary and Neil and everybody else on the council for going with us, and it's something that we are incredibly honored by. With that being said, I just wanted to reiterate one quick thing. We are a design build firm, so we very hands-on. We like to do a lot of our own build work. Trevor here is one of the premier shapers and builders of golf in the world. He's been with Core Crenshaw for the last 10 years. And we're very thrilled to have him on as one of our partners. And we bring in a team of talented people, like-minded vision to execute the vision on the golf course. And as Gary noted, we do like to work with local groups, and hopefully the maintenance crew and Ian will let us take some of their talented guys and help pitch in, and everybody really throw in and be a big part of executing this vision. So. I am going to read this first page just because it kind of gives an overview of everything, and then as we work through the slides, I'll kind of summarize from there. The vision for us is, it is with a deep sense of gratitude that we submit this master plan to Royal Dornoch Golf Club. We acknowledge the gravity of undertaking a plan that seeks to help one of the world's greatest clubs secure their ideal version of the future. With this in mind, we are suggesting the following enhancements to the club and their property. A revised Struie Course that shall seek to no longer live in the long shadow of the championship links. A new 18, which shall be built upon ideal Scottish linksland. A new 18-hole par 3 course. A new practice facility, which shall endeavor to be considered amongst the world's finest and will include a members-only short game facility, a 4-hole practice loop of par 3 holes, 2 Himalayas putting courses, and a kids course that can be routed into the greens of the practice facility. Additionally, we have given great consideration to the operations of these facilities and are suggesting a central location from which to manage the Struie Course, the new course, the practice facility, and the par 3 course. Ample acreage has also been set aside as well for key club initiatives, including an upgraded maintenance facility, staff housing, and parking. Finally, and with an eye towards capturing additional revenue from the traveling golfer, acreage adjacent to these facilities is available for potential future club-owned lodging. So this is our drawing of the plan. And we're up in here, and I'll walk you through each one of these elements, but just at a high level, we've got about a 3-acre putting course in here. We'd like to add an extra par 3 here to close this loop. Really big practice facility with members area. possibly another putting course down here. We could do a chipping facility, short game facility, whatever you guys want. This isn't set in stone. We can work within these parameters, but these are some of the main ideas. Really cool par 3 course, kind of akin to the Cradle at Pinehurst, which has been a great addition to that facility. There's some potential cabin lodgings in here. And then what I think is really terrific from an operational standpoint, and a little bit of background about me, I, for the last 10 years, through a long and convoluted set of circumstances, became one of the owner-operators of a golf course in Tennessee called Sweetens Cove. And we kind of put one foot in front of another with operations. We made a lot of mistakes, but we've also learned a lot along the way. And so a lot of the operational thoughts that went into this are things that I've learned in operating a golf facility, and how to streamline things and do things in a cost-effective way, and in a way that will help people flow about the property. So there was a lot of consideration put into that. But what we're suggesting here is basically like a Dornoch outpost, kind of a facility where you can operate the Struie and the new 18 going out in this way, some of the Struie holes preserved, and then some new Struie holes. But the preserved holes, we'll get into that, will also be enhanced as well. So with the new course that we're proposing, a new 18-hole golf course, our first step internally was to commission what's called a LiDAR contour study. And if you look at this, you can see these little contours. You can see some of the holes on the Struie. You guys know this land so well, you can probably make out where these little humps and hollows are. And so one of the key overarching things that I want you to think about when you look at this plan, and again, this is the first stab at a routing. A lot of times these things shift and change over time, but it is something we feel very comfortable about in its current stage, but we'd like to continue to refine it. But we have placed the greens and the bunkers in places that are natural settings for these features to exist. For instance, this green sits behind a big hillock. This green here is tucked into a neat little area to the left of a cool dune. So I want to point that out because our intention is to massage very gently these features into that sacred linksland that you have out there. So we want, from day one, this golf course to look like it's been there hundreds of years. We want to be very soft with the touch, very soft with the clearing lines, and put these greens and these features in places where you'll never know the difference between the hand of man and the hand of God. It's just going to all blend right together. So with that, I'd like to bring Trevor up. This was actually his routing, and he can kind of walk you through some of the things he had in mind there.
Thanks, Rob. This was a very interesting process, and Rob and I worked, back and forth on this. We knew that we wanted to try and maximize the amount of available resources, that being land, for golf for you guys. And so we were at first thinking, well, can we do a new course that would offset any disturbance to existing golf features out there right now? And we started working on this with this LiDAR contour map, and from starting points, we looked at a central location of where we could start off what would be the new Struie and the new course. And it worked out really well how we kind of fit the holes together in pretty well. I mean, there's this high ridge that we looked at in January and February, kind of up in here, and it was very unassuming. We didn't really know if we could fit holes beside each other or whether it would even work, because this land here isn't enough to get 18 holes, and we really wanted to try and do that. So when we started walking up there, that was the whole linchpin in this whole master plan that we did, because it all started falling together as soon as we realized we could do an interesting routing that came out here all the way up on this high ridge in this land. And then this is about where you start getting into all the more interesting contours and dunes land. And then it just started happening all together in here. We've got a lot of different really good tee to green connections and a lot of areas where you can connect where the intimacy of the routing comes together, where there's 2 greens, there's 2 tees to where you can meet up with people on the course, people that are just coming on the course, you can see where they are at. So we really try to do that, and then we try to keep our routings a little bit tighter so that, you know, we maximize the land, and then also just create more intimacy in the routing, so and disturb less ground. So that's kind of one of the main ways that we kind of started this off, and we've got some really interesting features out there that you know, we've come across, and we've got down to the coast here, and a lot of times architecture firms will just want to keep going along the coast, but you don't get to spend time on the coast. You spend more time walking down the coast, not hitting your ball. So we really worked hard on trying to get greens and tees as many possible points and locations to where you're maximizing the coast and that real estate right along the ocean, because it's a pretty beautiful spot if you get down to there. So there's a lot of work and thought and effort put into this routing, and I was out there a few days ago and was giving it a sanity check, and we're very, very happy with how it works out, and we're very hands-on. So when we get out there to start doing some of the work out here, we tend to shift things and make it better and get ideas from our team and crew, and this is like probably the worst that it could get. It only gets better from here. That's probably not a good word, but but it only gets better and better and better from here. We refine it, and it refines, and in that process, I think we'll come out with something really great.
Yeah, I think that's a great point Trevor just brought up. Our whole vision as a company is to start out with a concept and then refine that concept, and you keep elevating the standard, and you keep getting better every day until you grass. And then at that point in time, when you're grassing, I mean, you're talking about manipulating grades by, you know, little micro contours, you know, perhaps even millimeters or half inch here and there. And so you just keep refining until it's completely done. And one quick thing I wanted to point out to you guys, we've got some slides coming up with some perspective views for you. This is an area looking at number 5, a really cool par 3 with a hillock in front, and then number 13 looking this way, a really exciting par 5 that we found on our first visit. There's a very prominent dune right in here, and we routed this hole so that the green kind of sits in here, and you'll see that in greater detail here in a little bit. But I just wanted, when we get to that point, that you've got this plan view in your mind when you're seeing it in 3 dimensions too.
Yeah.
So this is a drawing that Trevor did, and I think the main point here is to kind of bring to the front that we want to work with this land and blend the land into the features on the side. And so this is kind of Trevor's study and how you kind of, you know, we talked about this hillock that's out there in nature right now. You could potentially, you know, have a cool green sitting behind that, and then how the golf course blends in at the edges. You know, the really great golf courses in the world, this one being one of them, blends into the surround so seamlessly. That's why, you know, it's been called the most natural course in the world. There's nothing just smacking you in the face where you see this weird transition. And so Trevor was really noodling on how to make those transitions work. And this is kind of how we think about things, and how, you know, how we preserve the native vegetation, the gorse, and fit this golf course into that landscape. And then a big thing for us is, in working with Ian and his team, is really getting into what can we do with the bunkers that are, number one, a bit of a departure from what we see on a lot of links golf courses, which is just the revetted face, but also something that's not going to be a maintenance headache at all, but something that's going to be more natural in appearance and is going to blend into nature. Sometimes with some of the revetted bunkers, they can get a little uniform. And so with this very organic golf course, we want to try to have bunkering that also reflects the organic nature of that. And so with Trevor's study here, you want to chime in here and kind of walk them through here and what some of the things you were thinking about?
Yeah, so a lot of the study of links courses that we've done over the many years that we've just looked and studied all the courses out here is a lot of times we'll look into an area where you'll get a bunker and it'll start off small, and then the winds and erosion hits it and it'll keep taking off. So a lot of the old greenkeepers back in the day will try and stop that by revetting, or what we have here is some old sleepers or railroad ties. So we just really looked at a lot of different ways how we could shore up certain areas that we think would be affected by erosion, wind, rain, certain things like that. So, and then trying not to make it so it's a perfect revetted face bunker. So we've looked at some studies in Norway where they build up the walls of their houses with big, thick stacks of sod. So it was just some other things that we were thinking about how to create bunker styles that were uniquely their own, not seen anywhere else, and just things that we want to try and see how it will work in the bunkering as far as the erosion and the aesthetics. So a lot of times what we try and do for our bunkering is we try and make it its own entity, its own character. We try really hard to give it its own identity, so that you know each bunker that you're in by a certain key feature, where it's here or here, or a little mound or a little island in the bunker. We work really hard on trying to make those features distinct. So.
Yeah, and another point to this too is Trevor's worked on a drawing style that's evocative of a style of construction called chunking, where you can take some native plant material and put it along the edges and let that root in and grow, and that'll help prevent erosion as well. And so perhaps sometimes you have a little bit of a natural chunked edge with the natural grasses that turns into this, almost Nordic stack sod look. But this is just something that we've thought a lot about, and we've talked with Ian and his team about, and it's something that, first and foremost, it needs to be maintainable and not a greater step for them in terms of maintenance, but something that's perhaps even easier to maintain, but also has a nice visual and natural appeal to it. So when we were out there walking around back in January, we came across this extraordinary dune right here. And it was just this really striking feature for us. And as part of our process, we wanted to highlight this area to demonstrate to the club how we might potentially lay a hole in there utilizing a prominent natural feature like that. So that's a pretty good picture. You can just see how these contours are working, and this would play into the routing. And I wanted to show you this picture. This is Trevor. Trevor's a pretty big guy, and that's his human scale against that. So pretty cool prominent feature. And now I'm going to scroll over into a multimedia piece that we did in conjunction with a group called Harris Kalinka that shows a 3D video and some artistic renderings of what this hole could look like. So I've got to scroll out of here for just a sec. Well, since the operator's not very good with his computer, we're going to watch that again. But there you see, right there is that big knob. So that does look like an actual golf hole. We joked with Neil and the guys that we'd actually built that out in the field, and I was surprised they didn't hear all the bulldozers going. But we back to this one. Let's see here. So here's a rendering of it, just a still capture. And what we want to highlight here with some of these stills is that this goes back again to that LiDAR survey that we showed on the plan view to begin with. These are all those contours that are in the LiDAR survey. This is what's on the ground there. This is not manipulated. This is not changed. This is exactly what's there. And Trevor just walked it and was able to experience a lot of that. I would have been able to walk it with him had the Savannah airport not had a bomb threat and I got in a day late. So, but we'll be spending a lot of time out there. There'll be many more days for that. So this is kind of a approach. This is probably, what do you think, about 180 yards short of the green, something like that?
Yeah.
Something like that. So this is a par 5 that's kind of coming in, got to make a risk-reward decision. So we're very intentional, too, about the siting of this green complex. It's like, are you going to lay up? Are you going to go for it? It's a 530-yard par 5. We like to make you think and always have to be thinking over your shot. You can't just stand up there and whack away at it. This is a bunker detail rendering, which it's a touch dark, but if you can kind of see, this is some of that Nordic sod rendering, potential bunker. There's some chunking in there. There's a little bit of a blowout here. This is how we could potentially build a bunker that looks very natural, but takes in some of those classic Scottish elements from years of old, and puts a little bit of a new spin on it, and then again, blending in. You know, this contour right here is there. This contour is there. We're just digging this little hole in the ground and then putting some reveting in there. And this is a really fantastic view right here. And what's interesting about this is this green complex, these contours are very, very close to what is there in nature, but we had to go through a process with the guy, Andrew Harris, who helped us render this, where the first version that came back was like almost a vertical face. It was too steep to mow, and there is this trench out here. Trevor walked through this, and it was too deep, and it was just a little too much. So those are like the kind of decisions that we would make in an actual real construction project where we're going, you know what, this face is going to be a little too hard for Ian and the guys to mow. Let's just soften that a little bit. Still maintains the boldness. The strategic interest is still there. It's a really great feature. Let's soften it a little bit. That's how we would do that in construction. And then this little trench creates some interest in the green, but it's got to be mobile, got to be maintainable. So let's just ever so slightly soften that. And we're talking probably, you know, cuts and fills of this much. I mean, it's really very minimal as far as the earth moving goes. And then here we'll dig in a little bit into the Struie Course. So coming back at it, we starting off here. Oh, I'll just stand over here by the outpost. Coming out 1, 2, 3. You kind of get down into some of the holes that are there. We're going to rework some of the strategy and do a little bit of cutting and filling on those to create some more interest. And then we get up into some of the flatter part of the property, which will address how we're going to deal with that, and some bigger cuts and fills to blend these holes into what's on the proposed new routing. And one thing that we're super excited about with the Struie is there's all these touch points between the proposed routing on the Struie and the proposed routing on the new. You can see the proximity of these holes. There's going to be a lot of really neat energy and interplay there. And then what's terrific is as you finish with a double green right there, 18 new coming in there and 18 Struie coming in there. So there's going to be a great energy right around that outpost. So in order to build the 9 new holes on the Struie that are in the flatter part of the land, we are going to have to move some material around. And what we are proposing is there are areas out there, and Ian and his team have done similar work out there where they borrow some material from a borrow pit, dig down, and do a cut and fill, and create some more contour and some more interest in the land. And so these next few slides are examples of the past where we have encountered areas where we've had to move dirt in our careers, and we wanted to show the club how proficient we are with that process. And our end goal, our end result here with those new holes on the Struie will be to blend those in and make them just as indistinguishable as the other holes that were there before. So we'll just keep going on it until our team is satisfied that we've made those features look very natural. So this is a golf course that we did in Homer, Nebraska called Landman. And while a beautiful piece of land, what this picture doesn't tell you is that these hills were far, far too steep for a golf course in its natural state. So we had to make some big cuts and fills. This area in here is where the first tee or first turning point is, right in here. In order to do that, we probably changed the grade 70 or 80 feet in that area. We cut 30 feet off of that hill and then put about 40 feet worth of dirt in there. So there's a major grade differential, so that before we started, it was going like this, and it was an unplayable golfing terrain, and now it goes like this, and it's a thrilling opening hole, and our guys did a great job of blending it back into nature so that when you're standing on that first tee, you don't realize that all that dirt has been moved. And now I want to make it clear, I'm not suggesting that we're going to make 70 and 80 foot cuts and fills out on the Struie site, but more just to get across the point that this was much more difficult than what we're proposing for the Struie, and our team is quite good at executing these types of things. Sweetens Cove is the golf course that Tad and I did. It's our first project, and the one that he and I worked hard to get open, and then I subsequently took over. It was a dead flat floodplain in East Tennessee on heavy clay soil, 9 holes, and now it's become a thing, and fortunately it made it, and it sells all its tee times about 5 minutes every year, and people come from all over the world to come see it, but we had to do a lot of work to get it from point A to point B. So there was this nasty ditch running down the middle of these 2 holes that were hardly golf holes, and we turned it into that. This is a Crossroads at Palmetto Bluff, a golf course we just finished in 2024. And opened in 2024, did it in 2023. And here's what we started with. It's in South Carolina, dead flat, muck, nasty. We had to excavate out all this muck and locate the good sand that was underneath it, and we'd put the muck and the bad stuff off to the side, and then we'd put the sand down the fairways. So now you've got 2 feet of sand everywhere, and the golf course plays firm and fast, and it plays as close to a links course as you could have in the southeastern United States. But we went from this to this and grassed out in 6 months and 29 days. So this is a lot harder. This is a lot more difficult than what you guys have got out there. On the land where the Struie is, there are neat little contours to work off of. There's already stuff that's there. It's much smaller than this. But I'm showing you this because it's an example of how we can do something pretty exceptional with something that's quite difficult. And again, the Struie land is about 1,000,000 times more interesting than this mud hole. So, and then I wanted to highlight some of Trevor's work when he was with Core Crenshaw, and he can get up and walk you through this. But this is at Cabot St. Lucia. He was the lead shaper and lead design associate for Core Crenshaw on that project. I believe it debuted at 67 in the world or something. And there's some interesting stories about what all Trevor had to do on a bulldozer, working really hard to take something that was an extraordinary site and turning it into an actual golfable terrain. And I'll say one more thing about Trevor. He's too humble to brag on himself, but he's as good as they come, and he's the guy that will be out there building a lot of these greens and a lot of these features. And if he were not working with us, he'd still be with Core Crenshaw, and should the Cool Links project go off, he would have been Bill's lead guy there. And we're fortunate that he is no longer Bill's lead guy and is a partner with us. So at any rate, Trevor can walk us through this pretty extraordinary transition from this, which is beautiful but difficult, to those two holes.
Yeah, a lot of times you're given a gifted site and you run into a few cruxes, and this was probably one of those situations in our project in St. Lucia. And Bill Core and Ben Crenshaw took a look at this, and they kind of said to us guys jokingly, they looked at it and say, well, I don't know what you guys are going to do here, but and they walk away. So it's kind of up to us on the equipment to, you know, see how we can work the land, and sometimes you got to do big moves, and this was one of the biggest moves to make the connection of holes work, because without this par 3 going across there, we would have to figure out a different way, and Bill entrusted us to get it done, and it took a lot. And I just want to reiterate, this is quite a bit more than what has to happen out on the Struie. You guys are very gifted out on the Struie, but but just like Rob says, it's just kind of showing some of the more challenging things that we've had to do, and we bring that to the table every single day. So
walk them through that cut and fill you made up there.
Yeah, so this section right here, where the front of the fairway is actually right about here, and we had to come in and do clearing and then take down the material and push it way down off the backside to just kind of get this leveled out. Yeah, it was a lot of times it was just me on an excavator, because I couldn't watch anybody else do it because it was a little bit scary. So, and I was pretty confident in what we could do, and if you could get up there and do it. But it took a lot of manipulation, slow baby steps, and then we have a tee that's actually right up in there, and we actually had to build that by hand because we weren't allowed to bring any equipment up there, otherwise we were fired. So, but yeah, just another example of some of the challenging terrain that we've worked on, and what it turns out to be. Turns out like.
And that's the part of the beauty of the Struie, and Gary alluded to this earlier, but there is a substantial amount of land out there which will be in native grass, and that gives us some room and some breadth, places to move to get some of this material and tie it back in naturally, and do these cuts and fills where we can build some great links holes on those 9 holes that we'll need to manufacture on the Struie. And so going into the just breakdown of the 18-hole par 3 course, again, you've got the little Dornoch outpost up here, some potential cabin sites in there where, maybe you have a cabin where there's a tee that just rolls right out onto the par 3 course, and you wake up in the morning and you just put a ball down and go out and play, or in the afternoon. You can imagine that being, very cradle-like, again, sort of like Pinehurst, but I think a great add here, potentially. And then taking a little bit closer look at the driving range short game area, again, serviced out of here for people who are down here playing the Struie and the new course, but they've also got another tee over here if you're playing the championship course, not too far from the clubhouse. This is a low area. We'll need to raise this up a little bit. That's where some of that material that's out there on that I believe it's 360 acres, will come to raise this up so it doesn't stay wet. And then we are proposing a potential members-only practice area in here. We thought you guys might like to have your own place to go, your own chipping little short course just for you guys, and this would be available for the public. Again, maybe a 30,000 square foot putting green down here, or could potentially be another chipping area, whatever you guys feel like. But again, this is a massive range. It's almost double the size of the one at Augusta National. We can help recreate any shot that you guys would see on any of the three courses, and so really a pretty big ad in terms of what you can do for practice here.
Can you calibrate for us? Go back to that slide for a second.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just calibrate for us where you are.
Yeah. Yeah, let me see here. Hold on, let me get my, hold on. Where's full screen? There it is. So there's the witch's hole right up there. Okay, and then yeah, and then this is that road that comes in right there.
Libby, can I help you out?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, all right. Sorry. So just to be clear, what's happening here is this is where the 14th is at the moment. The 15th, excuse me. Where that wall is. Are you with me? And then up over here, that's where the existing 17th green is. And that's the par 5 over there. 16th is going through here somewhere. It's using that land.
All the way out to hole 3, and then 4 comes somewhere down into here. So wherever we can go, I mean, it's a massive area. So it just kind of goes to show the extremities of where we can go.
Yeah. So another thing that we thought would be fun is if we built the greens on the range to accommodate, perhaps you want to have a day, say it's on a Sunday where only kids can come out and play, and they have a little 9-hole loop. We would build these greens to be, considered part of a little 9-hole par 3 course of, anything from, 80 yards to 160 yards or so. Put little flat spots out and have your little 9-hole loop. That's something we could accommodate, where there could be actual real play out on that range at whatever time the club feels is appropriate. And then this is a monster putting course, about 3.5 acres, right here, right near the clubhouse. And then we added a par 3 down here to kind of close this loop right around the witch's hole. And so then there's one on the championship in 18 on the championship there. And so Trevor, I added these tee shots. These are 4 new slides from our original presentation that we wanted to add. We just actually added these today right before we came in here. These are 4 photos that Trevor took of the new land that we thought might help you guys visualize some of the things we're talking about, and Trevor can walk you through what he saw out there. This is the 5 tee shot on the new course.
Yeah, so this is the 5th tee shot here.
This is that par 3 where we had the little drawing that we set aside with the hillock in front.
The rendering, the Harrison Kalinka rendering, came from the opposite way, and then our 5th hole par 3 kind of goes into here, and this is where you start to see the landforms change, and there becomes a lot more winds in that area, but very extremely gifted land. This is at the tail end of the high ridge that's out there that runs this way, and it just kind of goes to show how beautiful it can become. But there is areas where when we get into the construction of these holes, that the winds actually really can be a good framing mechanism for our holes, and we're very selective on how we approach the construction of this and how we take it out selectively. We approach this with kid gloves because it's such a beautiful time, and seeing it out there a couple days ago and yesterday with Mark, our COO, it was it was just unbelievable. Because a lot of times when you got to sanity check your routing as many times as possible just to see, and I was extremely happy with what we came across. So this is our 5th tee shot.
And then this is the 13 approach that was the video rendering that you guys see, and this is that dune on the right-hand side. But it gives you an
That
idea
bunker,
with the gorse in full bloom and how we would, incorporate, these fairways into the gorse with, like Trevor said, very selective clearing. Trevor, where do you think you're standing right now?
That bunker in the foreground on the rendering on the left-hand side, I'm standing up on top of it. So I'm just looking over the hill going down. And the green is actually right in here, in this area. And then there's that bunker up on the right-hand side, right in there. And then there's covered by all this native grasses, those wonderful undulations.
But you can kind of see in there where those undulations are. It's just a matter of trimming that grass down.
That's right. And a lot of time, like we've studied that LiDAR map so much in that digital elevation model. And when you get out there and you actually feel like you've already been there multiple times because we've had it in our head, all the contours that we've seen on that map is there. Yeah. It's very proofed, very accurate.
Trevor would FaceTime. He's like, Rob, the trench is here. Look at it. And he was up on the green, and sure enough, it was there. So that was a thrill to see that, this LiDAR survey that came from a drone was actually reflecting what was really and truly there. That was super cool.
Sorry, guys, just quickly while we're looking at that, do you have a feel roughly for the distance of that top lip of that trap to the green?
I bet you're probably 120 yards, maybe, something like that.
I would say that. It's
and then this one pinches in, and that green sits back. I mean, it's probably 100 to 120 yards, maybe, something like that.
Yeah.
No, that's not a happy place. So this is a 14 tee shot on the new course.
And so what's amazing about this tee shot is we've got a lot of wonderful green to tee connections that put you on a path and a journey. It's not they're very close together, but then there's sometimes where you get this a special little walk through where we found Mark and I walked it yesterday, where you walk through the winds right off the left-hand side of the previous green.
Which is 13. That's the one that had the rendering.
And then you get to walk through these winds and then come out right on top to where our back tee is on 14. And this is a little bit further forward, but that little journey through the winds is through the dunes. When we get in there, it totally adds to the whole journey of the course, and it's a pretty special spot. But from right here, our center line is pretty much right over this, and then the fairway will come. So this will be an elevated tee shot into a fairway. Over it, we'll have to clear out the gorse and the winds right here, and do some selective clearing of the winds, just to kind of, not have it so crowded and so tight. But the natural contours as we get up onto this high ridge that we found, it's all there. All the contouring is there, and it's just it's an amazing, thrilling tee shot.
And that ridge is somewhat analogous in a muted sense to the ridge on the championship course. It's not that high, but it's a sort of a muted analogy in a way. And one thing that's also cool when you're coming in, some of the tee shots and some of the approach shots on that ridge line up with the church steeple, which is really special. This is the 16th tee shot.
Yeah, and so I didn't have very many good photos of 15 because I was pretty excited, so I wasn't taking many pictures. But the interesting thing about our 14th tee shot is it really goes up to a high, and then it goes down to kind of a lower green, and then our 15th it goes from kind of a low, and then it goes down into a low fairway, and then up into a high green. So there's a lot of variety. One of the biggest things that Rob and I and Tad and Mark have learned is with Harry Colt, a famous golf architect, he had two words that always sticks out to us, and it's called infinite variety. the more that you can create a course that's varied in terrain and angles and everything, the more, just the better it becomes.
The more staying power it'll have over time.
Exactly. And then this is a par 3 that we have, and when we got to it, it's like, oh, well, the green's somewhere there. We're not going to go in there right now, but we will later. And but what we thought was it was a very, very beautiful composition of having the winds around it, and along the backside, there's a big kind of dune ridge here that kind of frames the backing of that green. And, you know, it's going to be an interesting process as we get into it and, you know, selectively start clearing the winds out. And, you know, in this time of year when there's a green in there, it'll be a very, very beautiful green site, kind of surrounded by some winds with pathways to walk in through it and get through it. But it'll look very, very beautiful at this time of year.
Very, very fitting.
Exactly.
You know. So I believe that's it, and we could pull up the original slide there, just so you guys can kind of see the overall plan. I know we went through that a little quick. I'm sure your head's probably spinning a little bit, but there's that. And so that's it. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you, chaps. I think it was excellent. Thank you for taking us through that. A few of us seen it before, but I hope you enjoyed what you see. I'm sure you will have some questions. As you've noticed, we're recording this for the rest of the membership. You know what's going out to them. So if you do have a question, could you wait till you get the microphone so that the members who aren't here get the benefit of your question as well as the answer?
Hi, Rob. Great presentation. Quick question for you. Do you happen to have an overlay of the existing Struie holes that you could almost overlay on top of that, just to give everyone a full understanding
You know,
of
I
the old
don't
routing?
have that, but that's something we could certainly produce for sure. Yeah. But the existing ones are, you know, come out in here. There's 9 total that we have that are existing, and then 9 new. So, but I can definitely get you guys that.
Yeah, Rob, just a question that goes through my mind quite a lot, playing down the Struie. Is there sufficient elevation change to get good drainage on these new holes?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you brought it up. And the answer is that right now the Struie does suffer from pretty serious drainage problems, and our plan would not only work to enhance and improve the drainage by raising up and getting some proper surface flow, but also you can enhance the strategy and the contouring and the playability, while at the same time improving the very serious drainage issues you've got in your lowest areas.
I'm a lazy golfer, so I've got 2 questions. One, how far do I have to walk from the clubhouse to get to each of the tees for the courses that are down there?
That is, I would say, probably about a 350-yard walk.
Second question, how much golf will Struie members be able to play while these courses and practice areas and so on are being created?
So part of our calling here was to make sure that any works would not interrupt the Struie. So hypothetically, if we were to build the new course first, the Struie would remain open during the entirety of that time. So you would always have 36 holes here open at all times.
Hi there. I'm looking at the drawing here, and that straight line down the bottom, I take it, is that the airfield?
That's the road. Yeah. I think, the airfield is kind of over in this.
So does that mean the academy holes and the existing driving range is going to be absorbed in that?
So that's, yeah, the academy holes would turn into in this plan would be part of this par 3 golf course.
Ah, okay. That's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
You mentioned a Dornoch outpost. Is there any more information on that?
Well, I didn't want to presume too much. I simply called it an outpost because I didn't want to call it a clubhouse. I didn't want to make any assumptions about size of the operational facility. We only made the assumption that you would want to have some sort of facility here to help get people off on these 2 golf courses and service the par 3 course in that end of the lower end of the driving range, whether that's, a small snack shop and some bathrooms, or it's completely up to the membership and the club to decide what the extent of that is. We just wanted to streamline your operations so that they were centralized and they weren't scattered all over the place. We felt like that was a big advantage for the club, operationally and financially, to locate it in one spot, and so we just called it an outpost.
Will you have a range of tees for all abilities in the new Struie and the new course? And what will be the par of the new course and the maximum length of the new course and the Struie?
Yeah, thank you. 100%, absolutely. We will have that. I'll blow this up. Uh-oh. Let me see if I can scroll over here. The new course currently is proposed at a par 70, 6,440 yards, and the Struie course is proposed as a par 71, 6,670 yards, and the 18-hole par 3 course is a par 54 at 2,160 yards. There is some room potentially to add some longer tees should we want to on the new course. There is room out there to do that. But to answer your question, we definitely want to accommodate golfers of all skill levels. That's something we take very seriously and would incorporate with any new works here.
Obviously, how quickly you can do this depends on how quickly we can spend the money. But if money were no object and you were able to start as early as you could, how long would this take?
We could accomplish all of this on a 5-year build-out with no interruption in play to the Struie, and then have the other golf course open when the Struie work started, so you'd always have a minimum of 36 holes. And it would, the fastest you could do it with grow-in and everything would be about 5 years.
Thanks, Neil. Just point of clarification on that. 5 years for the whole plan, or 5 years for the new course?
The entire plan.
The entire plan. And first of all, I'd just like to congratulate Neil and the committee and Gary on the vision of this. Is there been thought, and this is really a Dornoch question, on the sequencing of what we would do first and when we might start? Neil?
No, thanks, Todd. I think that was part of Gary's frequently asked questions at the beginning, is we want to come to you. Now you've seen it, as to what your desire would be to go first, and you see was the most important thing to start with.
Can I just interject something real quick? I think it's worth the membership knowing that we do see the Struie works and the practice facility works really requiring that's the more heavy cut and fills. So in a construction sense and in a cost sense, it would make sense that those are done at the same time. Because when you're cutting and filling like that, you may as well just get it done. That's the most efficient and most cost-effective way to do it. And the works would ideally incorporate both of those features at the same time. Not saying they need to go first. I'm just saying think about those as being attached at the hip from a construction standpoint. Yeah, that would be a phase.
I'm assuming that the parking will still all be up at the new clubhouse, but that there will be vehicular access for drop-offs at the little new facility.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Hello, I think what you've done is fantastic. It's very interesting. I know we've got the outpost there, but have you, and I'm sure you have, thought of maybe a halfway house and toilet facilities out on the course?
We have thought about that, but we just were hesitant to make too many assumptions at this early of a stage. But I think that you would definitely need a couple of those type of facilities. And what's nice, this is going back to the way our two golf courses work together. There's a lot of touch points where you could have a lot of access off both golf courses and put them by those nexus points where both golf courses will be served by one or two, probably two facilities.
So guys, something that makes the Struie, the existing Struie, a very interesting golf course is when the wind picks up. The wind in the Struie is always harder, particularly along the coastline. So we had a tournament here a few years ago where the really good golfers struggled more on the Struie than on the championship course. So with that in mind, I'm sure some of the other courses you've built have got windy conditions, and I'm looking at those sort of preferential bunker designs that you have, which are really big. So I'm wondering how much of those really big bunkers are going to be able to protect, you touched on it a little bit, protect that material from not blowing away, you know, maintenance and all that kind of thing. And then because it's such a windy section sometimes, how much of an opportunity have you had to consider the wind in your design?
Well, I think any wind is a huge consideration. I'll answer the second part first. In the design, and the number one rule is you want to attack the wind from many different directions, and you'll see that the par 3s, par 4s, and par 5s have a lot of variety in length and direction. That's something we're always cognizant of with the wind, because the wind might be blowing this way one day, might be blowing that way the next day. We want to provide what Trevor talked about with infinite variety. So you might have a 200-yard hole that one day is playing into the wind, next day it's playing downwind, completely different hole, or crosswind. So we always want to cite the par 3s and have the routing have variety in the distances and angles of those holes. And then with respect to the bunkering, I think one of the most fascinating things in links golf is how you have these bunkers that are sometimes not much bigger than this table, but there's an area around them that's as large as this room that they impact. And so we want to build a lot of features that are very much of that nature. We have a few larger bunkers drawn out here, but I don't think this is a site like a Landman or a Sweetens Cove where you just have these gigantic swaths of sand. That's not what we're envisioning at all. It's much more minimalist than that, and much more in keeping with a lot of what you have on the championship course, but done in a way that blends in, looks a little bit older.
And just to reiterate that is this is a plan, that's in our head, and we're very field-based architects. So when we get out there and we start riffing off of each other and get utilizing all the talent that's around us and just feeling the land and being on the site, that's when we start to really dial in on the strategy and the bunkering. There might be a bunker that we really want there, but it's a horrible thing for Ian. And then we'll just be like, well, we don't want to get Ian too ornery, so we'll just grass it. And it can be an abrupt contour that is still a hazard. There's many forms of hazards other than a bunker. And that's one thing that we try and implement on our courses is thinking about hazards differently than just a single sand bunker. And so when we get into the thick of it and we're out there and we're making the hole better and better and better, some of these bunkers might not be there, and some of these bunkers might change and move into more strategic, better locations.
Yeah,
So-
and to go back, just I'll say it, I can't say it enough, but I mean, our entire goal would be to work very, very closely with Ian and his team. I mean, they know this land as well as anybody in the the intricacies of it and the difficulties of it and the opportunities of it. And we want to make sure that we're doing things that are in concert with their maintenance and not in no way overstretching them. We want to do things that are maintainable but also have great strategic and playability, interest in terms of playability.
I'm amazed by the ambition and the vision. It's fantastic to see. The question, and it's more to the club than to the architects, is what's the vision for the membership of this new facility? We're going to build lots more golf holes. There's going to be lots more tee times. How do members? What's the view? And what's the vision for the membership?
We actually haven't thought an awful lot about that. That wasn't part of our brief as such. Obviously, what the guys have presented us with is going to certainly set up some questions going forward. But again, that's a subject that will be part of the discussion going forward, I'm pretty sure. With a facility like the guys are proposing, it's certainly going to hopefully allay some of our Struie members, I would think, getting golf course of such quality that because they may not be upgraded to the championship course, I'm sure this looks like it's going to be one hell of an alternative for them.
I'll piggyback on that comment. We had, I would say, two key moments in our study session out here that unlocked this vision as you see it. One was lunch with Gary. We had come in off the Struie, and Trevor and Mark and I were just, there's some really cool greens, some really cool features out there, and we came to realize that, the Struie has changed a lot over the years and isn't as sacred a piece of ground is the championship course, and that, there is an ambition within the club to see that raised substantially to a much higher level. And so that kind of helped unlock part of the ambitious nature of this plan with respect to the Struie. And then the other thing, again, Trevor alluded to this, I think I talked about it earlier, is that ridge line on the new course. That was the magic moment where everything fell into place. We found that ridge line when we were out there walking around, and we were like, oh boy, we can build an 18-hole golf course. Yeah, right. It's right in through here. You come up all this area right in through here. And we thought, man, you can build an 18-hole golf course out here. And then once we understood that there is an ambition to see a significantly elevated Struie, not just kind of a nip and tuck at the edges, that we could do something, like what we presented, and that's how it came to be.
I mean, from a personal point of view, I would urge you, if you get the chance, to go out and have a look at the land as it is just now. I mean, I've lived here for a fair number of years, and it was a bit of a revelation to me to go out to that park, because I thought it was pretty flat. But there's a significant ridge around along there, and as you boys alluded to,
really
it just opens things up.
Yeah. And what's cool about it too is you've got like all great golf courses have little sections. They're not all the same thing one after another. And so these ridge holes are different than the new 50-acre dune holes, and how they connect and weave together is an important part of that journey. And then how you come out of the more subtle ground on one, out on one, and then in on 18 with those walls. And there's just one really unique little 3-4 hole section after another that kind of weaves together as this entire tapestry on the new course, and that's just something we're very excited about.
So, having played a lot of golf courses over the years, in the 66 years or so that I've been playing, an observation I've made for most courses is that they're pretty much designed from the back forward. So the strategy that the architects use is really targeted toward the scratch golfer playing from the tips. And as the tees move forward, a lot of those strategic elements in the course start to disappear for the players who are playing from farther forward. And I was wondering how you guys tend to address that so that people who are playing from maybe not the tips, but the next tees forward or the next tees forward of that, still have some of that strategic interest, a bunker that's going to be in play or not in play.
It's a terrific question. I think it really just comes down to focus and how much time you spend. The one way to build an absolutely terrible golf course is to draw a plan in an office and then hand it off to somebody and have little circles for tees that or at just prescribed distances that don't really relate to what the wind is doing or where this bunker is actually going to end up in reality. And because we're so field-based and so site-focused, each one of our features and each one of our tees, we put a great deal of thought into making sure that they all relate to the strategy and strategic fabric of the golf hole in the way that you discussed. And then further to that point, I think that on a varied piece of ground like this, and one where you have the ever-changing winds, there's an opportunity to have different flat spots here and there, different angles here and there, that on any given day will allow the course setup crew to present potentially a different angle or a different shot that maybe you haven't seen in a week or 2 or 3 weeks or a month, and all of a sudden the course is placed completely differently because we have given them an opportunity to put a tee in a certain place. We like to have a very small d democratic approach to golf architecture and construction, and that we like people to discover and find out all the little nooks and crannies that are in our golf courses. And that's sort of it's a very democratic style of design and construction, in the sense that we're not dictating to you where you need to go, where you need to hit from. We're giving a lot of opportunities to the setup crew each and every day to present the golf course in a different light. And depending on the shifting winds and such an interesting landscape, it unlocks, again, going back to that word, the word's infinite variety. That's just such a huge focus for us.
So the question I was wanting to ask was, for those of us who know that bit of land, at the moment there are 2 tracks go from the turf nursery, one across to the back of the 12th green in Struie and another one a bit further northwest that goes away along. Are you able to kind of trace these on the drawing? Do you know the tracks I mean? Are you able to kind of trace them, just so I can get a feel for where things are?
Yeah, there's some tracks that come across here, and then one that's up higher. I'm not exactly sure. I know that there's one track up kind of here where we're proposing.
I think you'll find it comes from the end of the turf nursery and comes along this sort of area. About here.
Yeah.
I thought that's what it would be.
Those tracks do slightly skirt the lower Struie side of that ridge, and then there is one on top of that ridge.
With that question, would it be helpful to skirt over to the LiDAR survey slide? Do you think that would show some of that?
Yeah, probably.
Let's see here if we can just help with that. Let's see.
Yeah, you'll see the road.
Hold on here. Oh, no, wrong way. Let's see.
Yeah, I think it's mainly, you can't quite see them, but it
Looks like there's a little bit of a depression right where your finger is there, Trevor.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
and it goes along, or it goes down here, and then it comes up along number 3.
Could you
And
point
then
to
that.
exactly where the turf farm is now? Yep,
Right in here.
great.
Right, Ian?
Is Ian still awake? That's good. But here's an interesting thing now that we've got it up. I mean, there are little dings and depressions and interesting contours out there. I mean, people call it flat, but it's not. I mean, I've seen a lot flatter. So there's some fun things for us to work off of.
I just want to make sure that you realise that not everybody who plays golf here is an expert. Several are relative beginners. So I'm assuming that one of the courses in the Struie will be an 18 that will be suitable for people less experienced.
I would like for, and I will speak for my partners here, but they can tell me if they disagree, but I would like for both of them to be ones that a less experienced person can enjoy, but then still have shots and interests that would, you know, interest the best golfer. And, you know, if we go back to that 13th hole where we showed you the rendering, I mean, this is a hole where, you know, a weaker golfer can just put it on the ground 50, 60, 70 yards short and let the thing run, or maybe, you know, the expert player can try to dial in that distance and play the wind. And I think there's a lot of interesting grounds for golf here that would accommodate all levels, and that's certainly our approach. We never want to build something that's just for the great player. We recognize that this has been referred to by a certain famous person as the most fun golf course in the world, and we want to be in that vein.
Well, one thing I will reiterate is when we are working on the construction process and the design process in the field, we would really want for the lesser player, the higher handicap, to come out with us and walk some of the holes with us, and we'd really like to get into some of your heads and figure out if there's some ways that we can help accommodate you guys as well as that maybe we haven't thought of. So we're really, and that's exciting to us. I mean, we've talked to Rosemary about having some evenings where some of the ladies want to come out and walk with us, and we really want to show you what we're doing and how we're including that demographic of golfer into our course as well. So we're very excited for that too. So
we had a similar approach at Palmetto Bluff. We built a 9-hole reversible golf course there that we showed you guys a picture of, and they had a really difficult 18-hole Jack Nicklaus course where the greens are all perched up, and it just really ate higher handicappers alive. So one of our, you know, commands from the client was to have a golf course that would be more fun but still interesting for the good player. And one way we accomplished that was by getting a lot of those greens down on the ground, accommodating run-up play, having a little more width than say the Nicklaus course, where you're always playing golf, but you may not like your angle, but at least you're playing golf and you can still make a bogey from there, or maybe you can make a great par. But those are things we always think about.
Any further questions from anybody? Well, if there's nothing else,
Just a minute.
Oh, there is.
First, just say I'm really impressed with the expansiveness of the vision, and it's very exciting. Two quick questions. Can you say a little bit more about the consultation, the pre-planning consultation that was mentioned earlier? And also, can you share any sort of ballpark indication of the sort of funds the club will need to mobilise to make this vision a reality?
Regarding the first question, the pre-planning, would you clarify that a little bit more? I'm not sure.
I think Neil can clarify that a bit easier for us.
What would you like to know, Jim?
It was mentioned that the response was encouraging,
yes.
But presumably it was more than just saying, oh, this is good. Are there any reservations about getting this sort of vision through planning constraints, and is that a length of time required, part of the 5 years that were mentioned earlier?
I'm not expert in planning, Jim, I don't know, but because of the feedback we got in the Dock Finland, which has, you know, certain aspects to it we felt were more precious than other things. We feel that the land that the boys have been given, which is less intense, we feel we probably got a good progress on that. But again, that's one of the first things we'll have to do once we get started.
And that 5-year plan was assuming everything went as we wished with unlimited money. So hypothetical. So that was 5 years. Let's go. Let's get this done. So there's a lot of other things that, you know, in reality we need to think about, and we're going to take a very, you know, educated response to this. We want to make sure that we're not rushed, and we want to make sure that we get it done right, because it's going to be here for generations.
Right, we'll be here for the long haul, and we'll just respond at the time that the club says is the right time. So.
Okay. Anything further?
What's next? What's next? What happens next?
Yeah, well, I think that, as I said, Gary, we've got to speak to the planning people. We don't have any permits to build anything, so that needs to be the first step for us.
Okay.
Just a question on the drainage. You kind of mentioned it before, where you've obviously looking at the contours, high points, low points, and using a LiDAR. Is there any other tools that you actually use to look at drainage with regards to the golf course and how you get around that and, say, move the water to other parts?
We came out here in January 3rd,
Yeah.
which was where we visually seen a lot of standing water that was frozen. You know, we could have gone skating. and then also, as we walked the whole property, we seen where Ian had utilized the resources of sand, and we could see where that water elevation was on the high side of the Struie. So that was some of the things that we kind of looked at when we thought, okay, well, where's the water table in the wintertime? And then obviously we've had good chats with Ian and Scott, and they've given us a good amount.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, Neil, this is more a question for the club. If Cool Links gets the go-ahead by the Scottish Government in the next few months, does that have any impact on what the club do with these courses?
No, none whatsoever.
Right. Okay.
This is for us. We're going ahead with this. This is our plan. Okay, folks.
What's the next process? How do you go to the membership to get the go-ahead, or can we take a vote tonight, or can we just say go?
There is no vote. This was what the membership required in the previous survey.
So this is going to happen.
This team are the preferred option, and we're going to be going ahead with it when we can. Gentlemen, on behalf of Dornoch, I'd like to thank you very much. I think, needless to say, it's going to stimulate some conversations over the next wee while, which are going to be very interesting to take part in. Again, on behalf of the Dornoch membership, gentlemen, thank you very much for a fantastic presentation. And can I ask you to say thank you in the usual manner?
Thank you.